Are you also wondering what you could have done better when you're losing your games? But did you ever wonder if your champion is not the strongest in its current form in the current meta? Hits the spot? Then take a look at our best solo queue champions and what you can do with those. And first we have Pantheon. Pantheon in solo queue is just an annoying piece of a champion. Whatever he does a lot of damage. And once he jumps you, well, you'll feel the pain. Because Pantheon is an immense lane bully. He likes to get in your face and beat you up. And believe me, if he jumps you, this damage is not real. His first ability is just obscene, and if he's smart about his passive, he'll know to empower his second ability and then trade you with another empowered ability, while you are unable to do any damage back to him. However, that is only really possible once he hits level 3. But here's the deal breaker when you're playing a melee champion into him. If you go close to last hit minions, he can always use his first ability to trade into your face. And if he repeats the process with the stab, which lowers the cooldown of his first ability, you'll go down very fast. And once you're in execute range, his spear is gonna one-shot you, which is basically like 25% and then you're just gone. It just doesn't sound too nice, does it? And once he has done so, apart from being so obnoxious in lane, he can also snowball the map with his ultimate quite easily. Especially dragon laners fall victim to that quite often. Because all you see is Pantheon hitting level 5, vanishing into the fog of war, which is basically going base in this instance, and then just straight up walk to the dragon lane. And once he's close enough, he's just gonna ult in and then you get a double kill. And if you get a double kill on the dragon lane, the game is usually in a very rough spot. Because we all know what happens after. The flame wars begin, people are upset about other people's items for no apparent reason, and then they have 10 deaths in 4 minutes. Sounds more like a Yasuo, but is in fact the dragon lane, at least on a usual basis. And if it wasn't bad enough, he can also build a Blade of the Rune King, which increases his empowered W damage by quite a lot. Keep in mind, every hit of the second ability applies the passive effect of Blade of the Rune King, which means if he jumps you when you're full life, it's very likely that you drop to a very low amount very fast and then he gets to trade you for free, because you can't just trade back. It's very similar to a Renekton, but not as tanky and not as annoying. But for now, let's take a small break before we move on to our question of the day. But even before that, don't forget to hit the like and sub button to never miss anything ProGuides ever again. And now, onwards to our question. What are your thoughts on the second Herald? Is it too strong? Is it too weak? Is it just irrelevant? Just let me know in the comments below. And since our first champion was already annoying enough, let's talk about another annoying champion of this patch. And here we have Tryndamere. This champion got giga buffed, and it's really annoying to face him. And if there's something that's very specific about the Tryndamere, he loves to have Ghost as a summoner spell. It's simply the best summoner for him. The question is, why exactly? Well, the movement speed of the Ghost resets in a fight once he gets a kill. That also counts for the speed boost, so every time he gets a kill, he gets a 5-second extension on the Ghost plus the speed burst at the beginning. So the summoner spell grants him a lot of uptime in terms of auto attacks. And if he auto attacks you, he has the chance of critting, which is almost guaranteed, or rather absolutely guaranteed as the game goes on, and then he gets resets on his third ability, which means he can dash. And if he spins through your team, you're gonna see a lot of problems very fast. And the worst thing about all of this, you can think of Tryndamere as a champion that is a melee version of an AD carry, who conveniently has a 5-second invulnerability. Which, if you think about this, what is the weakest trait of an AD carry? It's their life, because they're very squishy and die very fast, at least usually. And having a 5-second invulnerability can really cause some problems for the enemy team. They have to respect you, they have to run away from you, and if they don't, they die, and if they stay, your team will also kill them, so it's a win-win situation. But what makes this champion so good in solo queue? Number 1, he scales super nice. Number 2, he can split push like no other. And if there's one thing that limits this champion, it's his summoner spells in teamfights. Having your summoner spells in teamfights is super important, because if you don't have them, it gets very hard to play your champion. Because if you don't get close, you don't get resets, and well, you know already what's going to happen. You will just soak a lot of damage and be a tank that does nothing. However, there's still something you provide even if you do nothing in terms of damage. You can slow the enemy from range and cut their AD short by like 40%, at least for 2.5 seconds. 40% taken away, that's a huge chunk, and in the later stages of the game it really impacts a teamfight. So even if you're getting CC'd and annoyed, you can still provide some value. But our next champion is absolutely immune to that CC, at least with his ultimate ability. Olaf is therefore excellent into high CC enemy comps. What he also loves is brawling the enemy. So why exactly is Olaf here? Olaf is a champion that loves to fight, and in solo queue everybody fights all the time. And he has one specific tool that is a big advantage over other champions. He has the ability to slow you from range, and do so frequently if he picks up his axe afterwards. And even better is the fact he has access to an ability that deals true damage. And little did you know, his auto attacks reset the cooldown of said ability. So even if you are a tank, you are in for a really bad time. But there's also something very counterintuitive about this champion. Usually when you're low on HP, you are afraid of your life and you just want to run away. But as the fight goes on, or rather extends, the lower your HP drop, the scarier you become. Because you get more attack speed to the low HP you have. But this obviously only matters if you cannot get one shot in the process. But if you want to force the enemy champions into a duel, just pick the Olaf. He's always going to provide you an excellent service. But now let's move on to our next pick. Here we have Diana. Diana is a champion that is always looked at in a weird way. On paper, she is a fighter and a mage. But in reality, she feels more like an assassin that is also a tank. The moment she completes Rod of Ages and it starts scaling, she becomes unbearably strong. Her second ability and the scaling of it just become overbearing in a fight, and she just doesn't die unless she overextends. But also doing this is quite easy, because Diana's potential in the fight is enormous. She can jump multiple times, making it hard for her to be locked down. But if she messes up once by not hitting the right target with a third ability, so not getting the cooldown reset, she is stuck in the position she's in, so it becomes really helpful that she's so tanky. But if you look at the skill ceiling of the champion, it's quite high. Always use an auto attack after your third ability, and if you do it multiple times in a fight, you have a super high APM. And similar to the amount of your APM is the amount of your damage as well. But what exactly makes Diana so good in this game? Diana's range is insane. Her third ability's range is just not real, like it's way too far. And since she's basically an assassin, she is quite excellent in solo queue. The reason for that, assassins are always busted in solo queue. People pay way too little attention to what they can do, and once they start snowballing, they one-shot you all around the map. Taking that similarity into mind, it's also the way she has to be played. Similar for example to Katarina, Diana has to wait before entering a fight, or at least so long until the most dangerous CC abilities are on cooldown. Because Diana doesn't want to get cancelled when channeling her ultimate. It's way too strong and deals way too much damage to allow that to happen. But there's also something that's quite special about this champion. If you look at all the champions you have on Wild Rift, you sometimes come across those champions that are like the X Factor. They have something that can change the game. For example, a Vayne. A Vayne can completely change the game at any point of the game. She can scale into the super late stages and just 1v9 every single fight. And she can also be annoying very early on. And exactly that is also something Diana has in common. Because of her huge AoE capabilities, she can turn a game on its head in one instant. And if that's something you're looking for, you have to start practicing her. She's just too much fun and too good at the same time. And since we're talking about fun and good champions, what about Camille? Camille is one of those champions who have been hit by the latest patch. Now, since her third ability doesn't grant attack speed on monster hits anymore, she fell out of the jungle meta basically completely overnight. However, there's also another way to play the Camille. Camille previously was flexed into the Baron lane and the jungle, but people completely forgot about the possibility of playing the Camille in the middle lane. And now we have a flex to the middle and the top lane, because Camille does one thing pretty well, catching people. So whenever you're thinking of picking a control mage, they can just Camille into your face and make sure your life is a living hell. Because if Camille locks you down, you best believe that the resident jungler is coming around the corner and collects the gold you have. And since your primary purpose as a control mage in the middle lane is to defend the tier 1 tower, you may get relieved of your duties quite fast and then fall into a miserable state of affairs. And there's also something we have to mention. Camille with Fleet Footwork can basically any matchup, be it top, be it Baron lane or be it mid lane. But always taking it will lose a lot of carry potential later on. Conqueror as a rune is just so broken, it grants so much bonus damage, but sometimes we have to take the hit and keep the Fleet Footwork. The healing is just too nice and makes laning too enjoyable. And there's also something that is quite sad for Wild Rift. Contrary to League PC's version of Camille, her hookshot in Wild Rift has always an extended range, so it's quite broken in that regard. But you can't use it to check brushes by jumping onto a wall on the other side of the brush, because on League you can do so and see if somebody is trapping there. It's quite the 5-ad move, so sadly it doesn't work here, but it's always a nice thing to think about this. But what does Camille do best? She loves roaming, and she can perfectly do so thanks to her hookshot ability. She can get behind you in an instant and lock you down with the ultimate, and then you're killed, because it's just so easy. So your only available counterplay in most situations is either having a team with a knockback ability or buying the stasis enchant. However, you need to use it correctly so her ability gets cancelled. But still, you're locked down in place, and then it's similar to Camille using ultimate on you regardless. But at least you won't take damage in the meantime, but the enemy team will still have the ability to walk up close to you. And that concludes today's video. Thank you all for watching, and hit the sub and like button to get notified for our next video tomorrow. So see you there.